Kumlan Abak Gemara. Today's daf is Kesuvos Daf Mem Zayin Amud Aleph. This is Monday's Gemara. So we're continuing the Mishnah. We're trying to learn how do you know the father has the right. The next one is Zakai b'mitziasa. Anything she finds ends up with the father. It's not written in the Torah, so how do we know that? It's midrabanan, and there's a reason for it. And the reason is mishum eva. Eva is a very powerful word. Eva means we don't want to create any animosity, even worse, acrimony between the two. What exactly? Why would it be Eva? It's an interesting argument. Rashi and Tosfos. Rashi learns that Eva is that he has to provide for his daughter, and if he doesn't get at least what she finds something, he doesn't get it, she'll stop providing for her, and he won't provide any further. Tosfos learns, however, that a father, even a father, definitely if he wants to withhold the mezainis he can, or even in a case, in other words, according to Rashi, he'll stop providing for her. That's what we're worried about, and therefore we want to make sure to keep him happy that the metzias go to the father. So according to Rashi, what happens if he doesn't provide for her? Let's say she's being taken care of by somebody else. Then Yitaka doesn't get the metzias. Why should he? But Tosfos learns that Eva means if she gets him angry to retaliate, he might marry her off to some shmendrik just to hurt her. That's what we're worried about. Then in that case, even if he doesn't provide for her, still the metzias go to the father. Otherwise, who knows, he can ruin her life forever. So you might further, might see there, all the earnings go to the father. Why is that? How do we know that? Again, we brought a passage which we learned yesterday's daf. In that Mavav, everything that she earns goes to the father. So never says he has the right to sell her off as a maid. And when he sells her off as a maid, whatever she earns goes to her master. Everything goes to the master. Same with the daughter, since he has full rights over her to sell her off, everything she earns goes to the father. Says maybe that's why we're talking about Tana, the Motzi Mizbala. Maybe only a Tana because he can sell her, he owns all her earnings. This cheshbon that you just made, once she's 12 years old, you can no longer sell her. Because even if you sold her at the age of 9, comes 12, she goes free. So surely you cannot, the famous Kavachema, you cannot sell her. So then he has no right to sell her as a slave. How do you know that then her earnings as a naira also end up with the father? Maybe it goes to her. So Gemara says, might mistabed, it only makes sense to be have. It makes sense that you go to the father. Why? Because he's talking about the Maisi, the Labdavio. If you can tell me that once she's 12 years old, the Maisi earnings don't go to the father anymore. The Torah gave the father the right to marry her off. Now the chuppah, the mimser, the chuppah, the gibro, the chuppah, hechim matzah masla. How can he ever take his daughter and say, take the day off work today because you're getting married? That day's earnings, she's going to lose. Right? It's like a casual work. You only get paid if you work. If you only get paid if you work. If you're not working, you don't get paid. So the father seems to have a right over her income because he can prevent her from going to work in order to get married. So if he has a right over her income in order to get married, it means he has rights over her income. Therefore, we know the income goes to him. So that's the Gemara's raya. Interesting proof. Says the Gemara, that's a proof. Maybe he can maybe he has to reimburse her for that day's wages. If he has the right to marry her off. But if it causes her to incurs her a loss, he has to reimburse her. Inami or the muscle of a Laila. Nobody works at night, and maybe he marries her off at night. Maybe that the father has the right to marry her off, but not to cause her a monetary loss. Or inami or the muscle law he gave over to her b'Shabbos the Yom Tov. He married off on Shabbos and Yom Tov, which is a difficulty because remember in my Cotton Daf test we learned you can't get married on Yom Tov or Shabbos because we don't want to mix the two simchas together. So what do you mean he marries her off on Shabbos and Yom Tov when she's not working anyway? There's no income to be lost, but he can't marry her off then. So there's a famous Tosfos there, and Tosfos, first of all, Tosfos says here that this idea of aim arva simcha is mahatera. It's not just midrabanan, it's mahatera. And Tosfos says like this, that there's a famous Tosfos of Zayin Amud Aleph. Tosfos the Masala. Tosfos says that Tosefes Shabbos or Yom Tov is Mahatera. You're adding to Shabbos. Let's say you bring in Shabbos or Yom Tov early, an hour early, is Mahatera Shabbos or Yom Tov, but only insofar that you're not allowed to work. You're not allowed to do any work that they're doing at Tosefes Shabbos. So it's Mahatera. Therefore, she can't work. On the other hand, but regarding the idea of Eim Arv and Simcha b'Simcha doesn't start till the actual Shabbos kicks in, till the actual Yom Tov kicks in. So Tosfos makes a big chiddush here that when we say that you're adding to Shabbos, does that mean that all the dinim of Shabbos start an hour early? Certain dinim start an hour early and certain don't. So the dinal doing malacha starts an hour early, so therefore she can't work anyway. But the idea that not getting married doesn't apply yet. So he can get married to her because this concept of Eim Arv Simcha doesn't exist. And maybe this also explains how can you get to have a chuppah? It's a kinyan, do a kinyan on Shabbos and on Yom Tov. But over here, because it's during the time of Taisa, maybe the Rabbana Kinyan you can. Only Yisur the Raisi you can't do. And that's and therefore that's how Taisa learns. So this Taisa establishes a number of interesting halachas, which everyone talks about. That Tosefes Shabbos is Ma'atayra, and not only just for 1 second, as long as even though Ma'atayra it's a minimum of a minute to add Tosefes Shabbos, but if you're an hour, the entire hour becomes Ma'atayra. And on the other hand, it's not in all respects, only to the Isur Malacha. And then taking another answer, maybe you got married with no meal. And getting married without a meal, even though there's a simcha, it's not the same as if you have a reception right after the chuppah. And therefore, the simcha of a chuppah on its own without a reception is not the kind of simcha that we say don't mix with blend in with Yom Tov, because it's a much lesser simcha. It doesn't interfere with Yom Tov. Anyway, so the Gemara therefore says, so how do you know that the father ends up with the money from the daughter once she's 12 years old? You're right. For Tana, we don't even need a pasuk to tell you that the father has rights with the daughter. You need a pasuk to tell me that he gets earnings. Even though the pasuk is talking about a Tana, but since it's unnecessary Tana, we have a concept mainly in it. If not for this, it's something else to expand and say that the father also owns the rights to the girl once she is 12 years old. He cancels all the Nedarim and all the Chsivas. We said before, not involved. The Nureh basically watches at home with the father. He receives her get if she's merely engaged. How do you know that? It says the Yotze B'Hoisa. It says she left the first husband, goes to the second. So we learn here, we learn in Gittin and Kedushin that we compare Gittin to Kedushin. Iskish Yitzil Lahavoyu. We compare the two together. And therefore the get, we compare Kedushin. Kedushin ends with the father, so too the get. The Ein Oichel Pei does not eat the fruits of her if she brings in assets. Then we open a trust account, a trust fund, and all the produce money goes there. Why? He doesn't get it. Rabbi disagrees. He says, yes, the father, just like the husband gets the earnings, so too the father. What's going on here? The Ma'akim Mifli, what's the argument in Tanakama? So Tanakama holds Bishleim Baal. When it comes to husband, we said, let him earn the produce. You know why we gave everything that we said the husband can have? We did it for her benefit. How is it her benefit? Let him keep the produce. He's happy. So if she gets Chas v'Shalom captured and taken captive, he will pay the ransom. Because if you're going to say that he's going to toil the field and all the money ends up with her, he's not going to pay the ransom. He'll say, take the money from the trust account, pay up the ransom. And what's wrong with that? And what's wrong with that is what happens, the ransom is larger than the money in the trust account. He's not going to pay from his own pocket. So therefore we say, keep all the money, and the risk is that if she gets captured, you're going to have to pay. And if it ends up being more than all the money that you accumulated over the years, too bad. You have to pay. So we did it for her benefit, and it seems that it did happen often enough that this is considered a valuable. This is considered a risk that she's happy to deal with, happy to give it over to him. When it comes to the father, what are you worried about? The mimin of a lepodik. You think a father is going to say, make a whole cheshbon that. A father, even the father anyway is going to, this his daughter. You think he wants his daughter to languish by these captives? Of course, he's always going to redeem her. So there's no reason to make this special takana that he should end up getting the money. Make a trust account, use the money from the trust account to redeem her. And if there's not enough, there's no question that he is going to help his daughter out. Every father is going to have Rahman as his daughter and make sure by hook or by crook she'll be freed. However, he disagrees. He holds of Nami Malaparik. He believes that a father also is not going to if you're not going to give me the earnings of a produce that she received from her mother's family, then why in the world should I free her? We use her money. If not enough, we'll wait till there's enough. So they're arguing the psychology of how the mindset of a father to daughter. Interesting. Somebody holds Kisa Nikita. There's a fund over here. I was building up Tays of a different nafsha. Let her go redeem herself. Not enough money in the kitty right now. Let her hang around there until there's enough money in the kitty. He says, once the husband married her, yes, that he does eat in the Chsimalek. We learned, cost of law. This is very interesting here. This is the idea of a dowry. Cost of law paid is ksus. So the father of the kala, in order to entice someone to marry her, gives off a dowry that they should both benefit from in their married life. And he gave her fruits and ksus clothes, the kalim, all kinds of utensils. When she gets married, to bring it into her marriage. What happens in Mesa? What happens if she died? She died during the engagement. Ray wrote the Kesuvos, the place where you write a Kesuvos by engagement. Ray wrote a Kesuvos, wrote all these things that are going to go into the marriage, but she never made it to the chuppah. Then the Tanakhama says the husband is not entitled to any of them, even though he wrote it clearly in the document that he's giving this to the husband and to the marriage. Not entitled because they didn't get married, even though they got engaged. And his intention was only by marriage. That's the view of the Tanakama. Ram Nassan says, Zocha habal b'dvarim halolu. Since it was recorded in the Ksula and they got engaged, that's good enough. And the husband is entitled to all of that. What's going on here? Lema, let us say, the Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov and Rabbana Kimifti. They're actually arguing in the machlekes of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and the Rabbana. What's the argument there? The question really is, does the ksuba kick in as soon as they got engaged, or the ksuba doesn't really kick in until they get married? But now we learned, nis armula, nis garsha, let's say she became a widow, or let's say got divorced. The husband. The husband gave a ksuba $100, $200, whatever she's entitled to, maybe added some more, and they got engaged with the ksuba, and then he died, or he divorced her. But she get her ksuba or not, because never consummated the marriage. So this Tana says, this am beimin asin, beimin an esin goyves hako. Regardless, that the wife collects the entire ksuba. However, if they got married and then he died, of course, goyves hako. But if they merely got engaged, then psula goyva masayim amon, what they're entitled to, the Tanai Bezin, which is the din of a ksuba, $200 to a psula, $100 a month, that happens. But the rest, all the extra stuff, the rest of the stuff was only the extra stuff that he promised her and so on and so forth. And the chayda that she promised him is only if they consummate the marriage to get married. That's so clearly that's the machlekes. Does it all the extra stuff happens only to get married, or even as soon the Tanakama hold as soon as they got engaged, and Abdullah Mazai says only after they got married? Says the Gemara, and it would seem clearly if he died, if she died, and the husband is not entitled to any of the dowry, holds like a Abdullah Mazai. Only happens if they got married. And the man, the one who says no, that the husband is entitled to the dowry, even though she didn't make it to the chuppah, is kirabon, and as soon as they got engaged, the ksuba becomes active, and everything they recorded is you have to comply with. So no, I can say Kuliyam Nazariya. Allah Nazariya. I can say that everyone agrees with Allah Nazariya that what? That the ksuba becomes active only if they got married, except the $100 and $200. So how come the husband can go? How come there's an opinion that says that the husband can collect a dowry even though he never got married? So what? So the more explains very interesting. The one who said that did not Nazariya. The one who says that the husband does not collect part of the dowry at all holds like Nazariya. You got to wait to get married. You never got married. But a man the one who says that the husband is entitled to the dowry, so what's going on here? Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said she's not entitled to the additions in the ksuba if they didn't get married, so why should the husband be entitled to the other side, to the dowry, if they didn't get married? So he said there's a difference between the husband vis-a-vis the wife, or the wife vis-a-vis the husband. And that's as follows. The ksuba giving from him to her is only if they get married. Why? The only reason why he wrote all these extra things is because he loves her and so on and so forth. When is he going to love her? Only they got married. So therefore, he didn't intend to give it to her unless they got married and settled down. So he gave her because he knows he wants to love her, he's going to love her, and therefore that's going to happen after marriage. But her father gave the dowry not because of love. He gave dowry the very fact that he prepared to get married, to get engaged to his daughter was already enough to give a dowry. Just the fact that the father of the girl is happy that he took her as a kala, but the fact that they got married. Interestingly, what this opinion says, the difference between what the husband's motivation is to give all these extra things and the wife's father. It's not the wife herself, it's the wife's father, why he gives a dowry, just the fact that he got engaged to her. There's a famous Rabbeinu Tam over here, and it's brought down actually in Shulchan Aruch. Rabbeinu Tam, if you look on the side of here, right next to the Gemara, the third line, very interesting. There's a whole discussion. What happens if they got married and a week later it falls apart? Does she get the dowry back? The Gemara seems clearly once they got married, according to everybody, that's it. Whatever is in the ksuba, whatever's in the dowry. However, Rabbeinu legislated halacha lemaisa. He made a halacha. This is called the takana of Rabbeinu Tam. Bechasan echad was a chasan shemeisa ishtay. That there was a chasan where the wife died. The father of the kala was still holding on to the dowry, didn't yet give it over to the chassan. That the husband has no right to take it because from the Gemara here. No, he passing on you have to get married. But then he goes further. But he made another takana, even if the money was already transferred to the husband. If you did not live a year together, we have a concept called shana d'sheni. It takes a year to develop that relationship. If you didn't live together for a year, you didn't live together a year, then everything, if she died or they divorced, then everything that she brought into the marriage, she takes back with her. You have to live a year before you're happily married. And then Tesha says, the chaza boy b'seif yamav ma'isa takana. He changed his mind later on. You don't have to live a year. Once you're married, that's it. However, it brings down Rabbeinu Tam as an opinion, and it's a whole discussion. If they get married and very short time afterwards they divorce, what happens to the ring? What happens to the dowry and everything else? Interesting. Anyway, back to the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Chaim said the father has to, the husband has to provide for his wife. So what we learned, Tiknu, the 3 takanas we made. And we did this to help out the wife. So this is what this brisa says, and it's very interesting lesson. Tiknu Mezonah said, they said, you know why he should provide for her? Tachas ma'aseh, in order that he gets her earnings. If you read the brisa literally, it sounds from here that the main thrust of the law was that her earnings should go to the husband. But in order that she shouldn't be upset, we give her a compensation. You know what? The husband should provide for you. But the Gemara, another Gemara will have later on, where there's an argument of Huna Nishlakish, can a wife say to the husband, I'm going to earn my own money, and I don't want you, and all my money that I earn, I'm going to have my own bank account. I don't want you to interfere, and you don't want to provide for me? I'm happy. I don't need your provision. So she had the right to say that. Huna says yes. In other words, Huna holds that the reason why her earnings go to the husband is as a compensation to the husband. We want to make sure that she's provided for. So therefore, the main legislation was provide for your wife. The compensation, we are going to tell her earnings go to him, but that's not what the Bryce says here. So Rav Huna, who holds that opinion, reverses the Bryce here, and he says that we will masakin ma'aseh yedeh for her mezainis. In other words, that we want to help her out. We want to make sure that the husband takes responsibility and takes good care of her. So therefore, but a compensation, if she earns some money, it goes to him. But if she makes a lot of money, more than him, she can tell him, go fly a kite. I'm having my bank account, don't leave me alone. Next thing is ukvarasa tachas ksuvasa. We said also that everything that she brings in to the dowry, so to compensate her for that, he has to pay for all her chas v'shalom. She passed away before him. He has to pay for all that. And the next thing is, therefore, Baal oichel peiros. Therefore, the husband can eat the produce from the asset that she brings in. Says, where's that come in? Who talked about assets or anything else? So you're right. A few words are missing in the Brisa. This I should learn. 3 things. Because of the earnings, therefore he has to provide for her, or the other way around, that because he has to provide for her, therefore the earnings go to him. And he has, since he gets the fruits of the produce of her assets of Nixim Malay, therefore he has to pay the ransom if she gets captured. And the kavurasa tachas kavasa, and her kavura for the ksuva. That means that the dowry that he gets, he has to pay for her kavura. What do you mean therefore he needs to pay this? We already explained why he needs to pay this. What do you mean therefore? I would have thought that he shouldn't really eat the produce. We should put a trust account. That let's put a trust account and just keep on saving money. Then in case she ever needs it, let's say she's taken captive, you can pay the ransom. We don't want that. Because what happens if there's not enough money in the kitty to pay her ransom? He's not going to put it in his own pocket to help her out. Therefore, we say, no, you keep the produce. And the chances are that he'll never have to use it for her. But if you do, you have to pay the full amount, regardless of how much it is. It's better for her. We're thinking about her benefit. It's better for her benefit that he gets to keep all the produce of those years, so that in case he has to pay the ransom for her, he will pay it, even though it might exceed the sum that he made from her over the years. He won't have enough money. They have to dig in his own pocket and ransom her. Says the Gemara. Why? Why did we say the other way around? Why did you decide that Mezainis is tagged to Ma'aseh Yedeh and Kavura, Ksuva, and all that? Let's say the other way around. Let's say that the Mezainis, that you provide for her, and therefore you get the produce, and you ransom her because you get the earnings. And the big nafkamin Allah would be, if let's say the ransom get the earnings, she cannot say, don't feed me, and I'm going to keep my own. I'm going to have my own bank account, because the two are not related. So how do you know which way it is? I'm going to advise that buy a tiknu, because it makes sense. Matzi le matzi. it's common for the husband to provide for her. I mean, you have to provide for her every day, and it's common for women to have a job. Clearly, from here, the Gemara says that women having a job and earning money was very, very common. So therefore, the two join together. Being taken captive is something which is not common, and for a woman to bring assets, property into the marriage is also not that common. Both of them are not common, are rare, and therefore we put the two together. So it's clearly here that women used to work and earn money, but I guess they didn't earn enough to provide for themselves, and therefore it's a benefit. The earnings go to the husband, and he will provide for you. Amar says, Rabbi, high time, someone learned that I said that. So right now we're learning it's Omer Rabbanan. The whole idea of providing is with Rabbanan, and therefore we enacted a law that he should provide for her, and therefore to benefit him, we gave him the earnings. However, Rabbi says our other Tanaim hold that Mahatoida, a husband must provide for his wife, and we don't need any special takonis. The time we learned, it says in the pasuk by a slave, it talks about it. It says that you have to make sure that the she'era, that you have to take care and so on and so forth. Right, we say that if you pass it on, if the master didn't, has to make sure that he said you have to give she'era, ksusa, and einasa, and you shouldn't diminish that. What exactly does she'era, ksusa, and einasa mean? What are these three things that a husband is obligated to his wife? So we learn she'era. This opinion says a few opinions. Elam is you got to feed your wife. Clear. She'era means feeding. The word she'era means feeding, means food. But it says the Navi reprimanded them. It says v'asha'achlu she'er ami. They ate the food of my people. And so on. So therefore, we see that she'er means food. Ksusa, kamashma. Everyone knows what ksusa is. There's a clothes, garments. You have to provide clothes for. And einasa, what is einasa? Zu oina hamur. That is that you have to have conjugal relations. You have to have intimate relations with your wife. And how do you know the word oina, which literally means a time? How do you know that's what it means? It refers to that. And this is what he said, that Lavan said to Yaakov, if you are going to deny my daughters their intimacy that they deserve. So we see the word oina means intimacy. But the bottom line is she'er means food. You have to provide for your wife. That's opinion number one. Opinion number two. She'er means having intimate relations. How do I know that? A person, when talking about the loss of erva, no incest is permitted, all your relatives is forbidden. Legal is erva. So we see clearly she'er is referring to intimacy. So she'er does not mean food, it means intimacy. Ksusa, everyone knows that means. The word oina, that's mezainis, that's food. Now, how do I know that? We're just reading the Torah. It says, what Hashem do to you? Vayancha vayarivecha. It says vayancha vayarivecha. It says in this week's parsha, last week's parsha, vayancha, that he sort of pained you, vayarivecha made you hungry. So we see that oina has to do with food. So the word, even in halacha, they don't argue. They're just arguing the derivative. Where do you learn this from? But both of them hold mahatreda. A husband has to provide for his wife. Now, Yaakov says no. He has a whole different shot. That she'era ksusa does not mean giving food, and therefore that's what they have in the Bryce before. That's only midrabanan, giving food. So how does he interpret she'era ksusa? Very interesting. He says she'era ksusa lefuum she'era, depending on the age of the depending on this woman, the age of this woman, her physical body. Tain ksusa, that's the kind of clothes you should give. Don't give to an older person clothes for a young, and to a young person clothes of an old. Rashi says that a young person is to wear very large clothing and is very, very becoming for them, and for an older person is too heavy of a load. You give her smaller clothes. Whatever it is, you should give clothes that are suitable for her age. That's what she'era. So she'era ksusa you put together. It's don't do with food. She'era ksusa means she'era her age or her body. Ksusa, that's the kind of clothes you should provide for her. And then we read einasa. We take the word ksusa, we add it to einasa as well. Lefum einasa, depending on the season of the year. Don't give her winter clothing for the summer. Tank ksusa shalayin chadashim, new clothes haven't been worn yet, are much thicker, and therefore they're very warm. Don't give her the new clothes in the summer. Nor shchakim, old clothes that are completely worn out. When it's very cold and the cold wind goes right through it. Give her suitable clothing. So according to the Rabbi Yaakov, there is no pasuk about food, and that's what we said before. That's only midrabanan. We'll stop here between tomorrow and